Welcome back to the program. So, I don't want to say happy Memorial Day weekend or happy Memorial Day. It's a solemn time to reflect and remember on those great heroes that sacrificed everything for our freedom. But I'm sure some of you are probably doing hamburgers, hot dogs, chicken, barbecue, hanging around with friends and family, and that's pretty much what we do during this weekend. But today I wanted to talk about obviously Memorial Day at the end of today's show, but just some of the things that have been going on. So I want to kind of put something into perspective. Barack Obama, when he was president, faced a total of 19 injunctions. In 8 years, only 19 injunctions. And he was pretty radical. Okay, other than this Biden auto pen regime, it was the second most radical. And yet, only 19 judges stepped up in both terms. Okay, George W. Bush, he faced somewhere between 7 or 8 in the first term and another 4 or 5 in the second term, so around 12, 13. President Trump, in his first term, faced over 55 in 4 years. You know where he's at now in the first 100 days? He's already at 25 and counting. So I started thinking to myself, well, what can we do to stop these judges? Well, obviously, the simplest thing is to pass the No Rogues Ruling Act, which would force these injunctions to be only in the district in which the judge presides, right? That would solve 75%, 80% of the entire problem. But of course, Congress is too busy with their big, beautiful rewrite to actually address that. And so it's been on the back burner. Hopefully they'll get to it, but who knows? The other thing is we could somehow get an injunction from the Supreme Court to rule on the injunctions for nationwide injunctions. Now, is that going to come down? Hopefully pretty soon, maybe in the next couple of months. I don't know. But regardless, we ought to be ignoring anyone that is obstructing the executive branch. And that is basically what Stephen Miller is saying without publicly actually coming out and saying it, because if he does that, then there could be problems and trouble. But you know what? These judges that are issuing these injunctions, well over 25 of them already, they need to pay for this, okay? Now, normally you're not supposed to be able to go after a judge. However, you can. And here's how, okay? Judges have to abide by the separation of powers. And so, a federal judge that interferes with the executive branch could be charged with a felony under law, specifically U.S. Code 18-1503, which is obstruction of justice. That is the charge that every single one of these activist, injunctivist judges thinks that they can just do this without any repercussions or consequences. Now, granted, of course, Pam Bondi doesn't want to come out publicly and say, we're going to go after these judges because we need the Supreme Court to knock these judges out. And if there's a public knowledge that they're going to go after the judges, well, maybe then the Supreme Court won't take certain cases, or they'll take certain cases and they'll rule the wrong way just to protect these judges. So it's something that would have to be after the fact. But to sit here and say that these judges should be able to just do these injunctions nationwide and get away with it, hell no. And so I think, and I will certainly push once the Supreme Court rules against nationwide injunctions, which I believe they're going to do in the next few months, once that decision is final, I will be pushing to the people that I know to have every single one, and I want you to understand, every judge that issued a unconstitutional nationwide injunction, I will be pushing to make sure that they are investigated and indicted on a felony U.S. Code 18-1503 1503, which is obstruction of justice. Okay? So we'll see what happens here in the future. Now, next thing. Trump judge, appointed by President Trump, delivers a massive pro-life win regarding a Biden-era abortion rule. Now, if someone's going to have an abortion, yes, it's terrible, it's depraved, it's murderous, and thankfully the Supreme Court overturned it. But there are still states, sadly, that you're allowed to have abortions in. And because you are, the law has been bastardized when they passed this law in 2022 called the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, which passed in 2022. Nowhere in the law does it say that you should have paid time off to go and murder your child. Okay? Nowhere in the law. So, thankfully, you had some Christian organizations realize that they have been bastardizing this, and they've been using it the way it was not intended, which was to have paid time off. And so they challenged it, and a judge, U.S. District Judge David Joseph of the Western District of Louisiana, ruled on Wednesday that the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission had wrongly applied its authority when including abortion in pregnancy-related conditions covered by the Pregnancy Workers Fairness Act of 2022. So in other words, in the law, it did not state that they should be paid time off to go kill their children. And they were using it for that, and they were getting paid time off. This judge stepped in and stopped it. So this is a huge win for the pro-life movement. So if these people in California and New York and elsewhere want to kill their babies, number one, you're not getting paid for it. And number two, you're going to do it on your time, not on work time. So I wanted to point that out because I thought that was pretty interesting. Okay, next. Okay, on Substack and on X, I have been seeing in the last few days a post, a meme, whatever, and it says, this may be unpopular, but I'm going to say it anyway. We should take the money from Harvard and give it to trade schools. So I immediately was like, heart, yes, absolutely, yes. And a lot of people loved it. You should see how many people, had hearts on it and were commenting and sharing it and retweeting it and all that. Well, it turns out that now President Trump is aware of this, and President Trump is actually seriously contemplating taking $3 billion of grant money from Harvard and giving it to trade schools all across the United States of America. Just because of something on social media that eventually got to him and his people. So, always post on social media, especially Substack, but everywhere, because you never know who's going to see it. Case in point with Brandon Johnson. As soon as I saw the story, I knew he was breaking the EEOC rules. I knew he was breaking the civil rights rules. I knew he was breaking discrimination rules. So what did I do? I sent it to Harmeet. And the next day, they opened up an investigation. So continue to post is what I'm saying. President Trump threatens to take $3 billion of grant money from Harvard and give it to trade schools across the United States. Another brilliant idea from President Trump. On Memorial Day weekend morning, President Trump posted a warning on Truth Social that he may take $3 billion in grant money from Harvard and redistribute it to trade schools all across the United States. Trump's really backing the they-them crowd into a corner, it says. I am considering taking $3 billion of grant money away from very anti-Semitic Harvard and giving it to trade schools all across the land. What a great investment that would be for the United States of America, and so badly needed. Do it, President Trump. Do it. Okay? We need to pump as much money as possible into these trade schools. We need to get more electricians, more plumbers, more architects, more heating and air conditioning and HVAC guys, and so many people that can do niche things. You know how many times I have heard, even from people that I went to high school with, Some of them went and got college degrees and they got master's degrees and they're doing all right. They're making money, whatever. But then you've got the guys that went through a training program to be a roofer or a plumber or whatever. They started as an apprentice. They worked their ass off. They saved their money. And guess what? They opened up their own business. And now they're making more than the people with PhDs and master degrees. Okay? So we need more skilled type of trade colleges out there. We need a lot of them all over the place. They should outnumber 10-1 regular colleges, in my opinion. So I hope he does it. I hope he takes that money from Harvard, especially from Harvard and Columbia and all these schools. Take all of it. Take 15, 20, 25, 30, 40, 50 billion dollars and just bam, reinvest it in trade schools across the United States of America. You'll have many more conservative voters too. All right. Next. This is an interesting story that I had no idea. Not only is Marco Rubio, in my opinion, probably the greatest Secretary of State already. I mean, he is just dynamite in everything that he's doing. But he actually helped rescue people that were part of the anti-Maduro regime from an embassy in Argentina. I'm sorry, in Caracas, at the Argentine embassy in Caracas, Venezuela. So listen to this crazy story. A group of 5 Venezuelan activists, part of the team of opposition leader Maria Corina Machado and the actual real president-elect Edmundo Gonzalez Urrutia, met this Friday with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio after being rescued from a prolonged confinement in the Argentine embassy in Caracas. The freed individuals expressed deep gratitude to the United States for leading this operation that ended their captivity. So basically, these were folks that supported the real president of Venezuela, not the one that stole the election, Maduro. And when they were found out to be supporters of him, he's already in exile somewhere, fearing for his life, sadly. But these people were then rounded up and they were put into this basic jail, even though it was an embassy. And so they have been stuck there for well over a year. And they didn't have medical supplies. They were barely fed. They were confined into this thing. So the opposition members who had been trapped in a diplomatic facility turned into a prison by Nicolas Maduro's regime emphasized the significance of the release. This act is both a humanitarian and political victory that reinforces our democratic will and that of those of the Venezuelan people in the election of July 28, 2024, where Edmundo Gonzalez Urrutia was legitimately elected president, is what the statement said. The rescued individuals, Magalili Meda, Pedro Urrutia, Claudia Macero, Humberto Villalobos, and Omar Gonzalez Moreno, along with a tribute to their late colleague Fernando Martinez Matola, praised the courage and precision of the operation that secured their freedom. In a joint statement, they declared, quote, "The bravery of Secretary Rubio and the firm support of President Donald Trump made this milestone possible. The United States stands as a pillar of freedom in our region," end quote. Rubio, who called the activists brave defenders of democracy, played an integral key role in bringing attention to their plight and coordinating international efforts for their release. He described the operation as a successful rescue of individuals held by the Maduro regime, made possible through careful coordination with global partners. So how cool is that, huh? We rescued these people and we got them out. And I just think that that is awesome and wonderful. All right, let's end with this. Memorial Day, a short history. Memorial Day is an American holiday observed on the last Monday of May each year. It is a day of remembrance, dedicated to honoring and remembering the men and women who have died while serving in the United States Armed Forces. The origins of Memorial Day can be traced back to the aftermath of the American Civil War. Following the war, communities in various parts of the country began holding ceremonies and tributes to honor those that they have lost in battle. These observances were initially known as Decoration Day and involved decorating the graves of fallen soldiers with flowers, flags, and other symbolic items. The first widely recognized observance of Decoration Day took place on May 30th, 1868. General John A. Logan, the Commander-in-Chief of the Grand Army of the Republic, an organization of Union veterans, issued a proclamation designating that day for the purpose of strewing flowers on the graves of fallen soldiers. Over time, Decoration Day became more widely recognized and observed throughout the entire country. After World War I, the holiday evolved to include honoring the fallen from all American wars, not just the Civil War. In 1971, Memorial Day was officially recognized as a federal holiday, and its observance was moved to the last Monday in May as part of the Uniform Monday Holiday Act, which aimed to create more three-day weekends for workers. Today, Memorial Day is observed as a solemn occasion to remember and pay tribute to the brave men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice in defense of their country. It is time for Americans to reflect on the cost of freedom and to express gratitude for the sacrifices made by those who had served in our military. The day is marked by various traditions, including memorial ceremonies, parades, placing flags on graves, and visiting memorials and cemeteries. While Memorial Day also unofficially marks the beginning of the summer season in the United States, it is important to remember that the true purpose of the holiday is to honor those memories of those who have died in service to their nation. To all, a very happy but solemn Memorial Day. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one.